Part 1. The Port. The movie begins with a Russian schooner named Demeter washed ashore in Whitby, England on August 6, 1897. The constable is called who arrives at the location. He is handed the schooner's captain's log. The story begins 4 weeks before the wreck when a caravan brings large wooden crates sealed to port in Varna, Bulgaria. The Demeter docks there to transport those crates to London, England. Captain Elliot tasks Wojciech with recruiting a few crewmen. The Romanian caravan that brought the cargo to the port refuses to help load it and is insistent on leaving the port before sunset. Wojciech asks his men to quickly load the cargo, or they will miss the tide. Clemens, an English doctor who was initially rejected by Wojciech, is also recruited after he saves the life of Captain Elliot's grandson, Toby. A newly recruited crewman, for whose negligence a crate fell to the ground, leaves the ship stating that those crates bring bad omen. Demeter sails before the sunset. On board, Toby shows the ship to Clemens. He shows Clemens the stress signal by knocking on an arc. They go through the gallery, check on the animals, and meet the cook. Captain Elliot notes his log, and after talking with Wojciech, he appoints him as the captain once they reach London. Elliot declares that it will be his last voyage as a captain. At the dinner, the animals start howling, and Toby and Clemens go down to check on them. Clemens tells Toby to fetch the captain, as something fell in the cargo hold. Clemens goes to check on what is happening in the hold. He sees that a crate has cracked open, and all the mud in it has come out. As he searches the mud, a sickly woman appears from underneath it. Clemens gets her out for treatment. Clemens is adamant about treating the woman. While the rest of the ship's crew disagrees with him, he nevertheless goes on to treat her. Part 2. The Stowaway. While Clemens proceeds with a blood transfusion to cure Anna, a weird creature struggles to get out of another crate in the cargo hold. That night, Clemens gets to the deck and chats with Olgarin. After a while, Olgarin sees the creature for a split second and goes after it. He doesn't find it, and coming back to Clemens, he asks him if he saw it too. Later, the dog becomes restless and barks, seeing the shadow of the creature. Joseph goes below the deck to find the dog severely killed. He finds out that all the animals have been killed. The captain orders the disposal of the dead animal. However, they have no idea what happened to those animals. Olgarin is convinced that something unnatural is on the ship, and he tells Clemens that he knows that too. However, Clemens responds that he doesn't believe in supernatural things. A few nights later, Petrovsky is on the watch. He hears something and goes to find out what's happening. He initially thinks that it is some sort of prank by his friends. He gets serious when he hears strange noises from a corner of the deck. He sees the creature, and finding it crawling, Petrovsky draws his knife. Before Petrovsky could do anything, the creature jumps on him and cuts his throat. A severely injured Petrovsky crawls away from the creature, but before he can reach his knife, the creature gets hold of him. The creature then starts sucking Petrovsky's blood. Clemens comes to the deck and, not finding Petrovsky, rings the alarm. The next morning, the captain and the crew gather on the deck to speculate on what happened to Petrovsky. As his body is missing and there is no sign of him, Clemens tells the captain that he saw bite marks on all the animals that were killed. He speculates that something might have killed them but is not sure what. Anna comes there and frightenedly tells him that he is on board and that they should all leave the ship immediately, or they will all die. Clemens restrains Anna, and Wojciech tells everyone to go back to work despite Abram's protest. The captain orders a search of the ship. However, the crew finds nothing. Anna tells Clemens that evil lives where she comes from. That evil creature wears the skin of a man but feeds on the blood of the innocent. Anna says that they called him Dracula. Part 3. Dracula. On a stormy night, Dracula crawls up the deck when Larsen is on watch. Larsen hears knocks on the ship's ark. Olgarin comes out, and both draw their knives. Dracula jumps on Larsen and bangs his head until he dies. Olgarin sees that, and his fears run all over him. He begs for his life and climbs the main mast as Dracula follows him. As the ship begins to stray in the storm, all crew members wake up and go to the deck. They manage to take back control of the ship but do not find Larsen, who was supposed to be on watch. They find Olgarin, who is gravely wounded but still alive. He is strapped to a table and Clemens sews his wounds. The captain orders that there should always be 2 armed people on watch and that they should search the whole ship again. The crew gets armed and starts their search. The captain leaves his quarters and asks Toby to lock the door. Later that day, as the sun goes down, Olgarin frees himself from the bindings. Toby leaves the captain's room and goes below the deck. Toby sees Olgarin and doesn't recognize his condition. Olgarin has now become a bloodthirsty drone. He grabs Toby, but Toby manages to escape. Olgarin follows Toby to the captain's room. Toby locks the door behind himself. Olgarin starts banging his head on the door and manages to break it partially. Toby starts knocking on the ship's ark. The ship crew and the captain notice that and run to his rescue. Toby hides under a table and starts praying. Clemens reaches first. Olgarin attacks him. The crew comes and restrains Olgarin. Toby sees Dracula in the room as well and freezes. The captain and Clemens see Dracula as well. They start hitting the door. However, it is firmly secured. Dracula catches Toby and starts sucking his blood. Anna comes and shoots the door open. They find Toby lying on the ground, injured but still alive. Clemens starts a blood transfusion to help Toby survive. The next morning, they tie Olgren to the mast. As the sun begins to rise, Olgren complains that he feels a burning sensation. When the sunlight touches his skin, Olgren violently burns in agony before Wojciech shoots him in the head. With the spirit low among the crewmen, they argue among themselves. Clemens is worried that Toby might also become like Olgren. Wojciech hands him a gun to shoot Toby, but Clemens says that is not what he meant. That night, Clemens and Anna decide to open all the crates and find Dracula. Clemens and Anna arm themselves and start their quest. On the deck, Abrams is on watch. Joseph knocks him out and leaves the ship on the only lifeboat available. Clemens starts opening the crates. He finds only dirt in them. Then they go to a crate that looks different. Anna finds the lock mechanism of the crate and they open it. Opening the crate, Clemens finds a cane. They conclude that it must be the crate where Dracula sleeps. In the mist, a lonely Joseph rows away from the ship but hears scary voices. He starts to pray as he realizes that it must be his end. Then Dracula appears and devours him. Wojciech rings the alarm and the crewmen see the lifeboat coming back to them empty. The next morning, they all gather to say farewell to Toby. Clemens has wrapped Toby in canvas, ready to be thrown into the sea. Captain Elliot is heartbroken. He is reluctant to part with Toby. Before they could throw the body away, Elliot thinks Toby is still alive. Getting close to him and taking his face out of the wrap, Toby comes to life but has turned into a bloodthirsty evil. As the sun touches his face, Toby violently combusts, burning Elliot's face as well. Clemens quickly throws Toby into the sea. He finally dies, drowning at the bottom of the ocean. Part 4. Clemens's plan. Clemens convinces the crew member that they can plan to kill Dracula. The plan is to set a trap for Dracula so that it comes out and then sink the ship. The crew would get on the lifeboat and reach London, which is only a day away. Wojciech is against the idea of sinking Demeter, but Clemens convinces him that otherwise Dracula will reach London, and that would devastate the whole city, and even the country. The crew barricades the holes through which Dracula gets out. 2 crew members would get on the mainmast, and Anna would be the bait. Elliot logs everything in his notebook. That night, Abrams and Wojciech go up the mainmast. The fog gets intense and they can barely see around them. Anna stands by the wheels. All armed, they wait for Dracula. Dracula then emerges in the fog. Abrams and Wojciech are scared to death. Dracula flies and with a single strike, kills Abrams. Wojciech remains alone on the mast. He climbs down as Dracula flies over him. Dracula strikes Wojciech and he falls below the deck. He takes his axe and prepares to sink the ship. Wojciech gets below the deck to prepare for the process of sinking the ship. However, Dracula arrives before he can do that. Dracula catches Wojciech and starts sucking his blood. Elliot comes to the wheel and tries to stabilize the ship. Dracula then severely injures the captain. Clemens unties the captain before he dies. Clemens then provokes Dracula to show himself. The storm becomes quite unsettling. He appears from behind him, stretching his wings. A bat-like creature, Dracula, strikes Clemens before Anna shoots him. Dracula strikes Anna and starts drinking her blood. Clemens strikes Dracula with an axe, but he survives. He takes Clemens by the neck and cuts his neck before drinking his blood. Anna then cuts the mast, which strikes Dracula. Clemens and Anna jump into the water and hold on to a wood log. It is then that the ship reaches the English shores. An injured Dracula releases himself from the weight of the mast. Anna seems to have been infected as well. She tells Clemens that she would rather die than become evil. Clemens tries to save her, but she says that they cannot prevent the inevitable. Anna sits on the log as the sun dawns upon her, burning her immediately. Clemens then swims to shore. Clemens reaches London and is informed that the entire crew of the Demeter is reported dead. He goes to a tavern to search for Dracula. He hears the same knocking sound from the ship. Dracula appears there, carrying his cane. Clemens follows Dracula into the alley and vows not to rest until he kills Dracula. Part 5. The Verdict. The movie is based on a short chapter from Bram Stoker's novel, Dracula. While the chapter doesn't have much significance to the novel except for telling us how one of Bram's protagonists reaches London, the movie expands on it to show us what exactly happened that brought the horror, which we now know in literary and cinematic circles as Dracula. The movie attempts to tell a story that most of the audience already knows. It accomplishes this by primarily focusing on visual style. The movie is a decent horror film. The performances of the actors are all strong and convincing. This adds a lot to the movie's well-known story or plot. The movie is, broadly speaking, smart and decently realized. However, while in most horror movies one wouldn't want its characters to go hunt the evil, in this one questions why the crewmen of Demeter do not do so during the day. This was our recap and verdict. Tell us what you liked or disliked about this movie. Let us know in the comments section what movie we should recap next. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified when we upload new videos and enjoy watching.